I'm going to tell you a little story about the quest for flex. Now, that's something I heard somewhere, actually, or read somewhere. I can't remember where, but that's not original to me, that little quote. But it works really good for what we're going to be talking about today. And so, um, our my latest invention for a board that's super light, really springy, kinetic in the lip, has the properties of an epoxy, of that real whippy feel in the lip, but has the dampening flex characteristic, like coming off the bottom and in between maneuvers, of an ultralight poly, and synthesizing those two together. Because you have kind of the ultralight poly world, and you have the carbon and the epoxy world, and it's like that, what's that old saying, ne'er do the two twain meet, or something like that. And so it's always been these kind of polarizing things. Oh, the epoxies work in the pools, and if it's glassy, if it's small, if it's grovelly. And the polys work when there's real waves, or there's hard offshores, any surface texture, steps in the face. Then you need the polys to dampen through that, plow through it. And so what I've seen different things with like carbon stuff going on, where the whole board's carbon, all kind of things over the years. Ever since, and this is my latest invention of the carbon thing and the flex characteristic, and harnessing it into one really versatile package for shortboards, grovelers, pool boards, good wave boards, the lot. And all kind of different boards too. High performance shortboards, fish, performance longboard, anything you can apply this system to, and I believe it's going to open new doors for just really kinetic, responsive surfing, and while at the same time keeping everything completely custom. And so here's the look of it. It looks real neat. Weighs in at about like 4 pounds, like 4 to 5 pounds. They come out really light. and my journey with constructions that are alternative constructions and out of the box thinking, that type of stuff, actually started way back when Clark Foam pulled the plug on making blanks years ago. It was like referred to as Black Monday or Black Thursday or Friday or something like that. I can't remember the day, but it was black something or other. And because of just the kind of, it felt like this assault on the surfboard industry of, whoa, the supplier of all the foam blanks in the whole world just pulled pins on us and broke all their molds, so it can't be taken over and we're left in the lurch. But what had happened at that same time for me at that stage in my career is that I had come out of like working for other companies and seeing what like the real elite pro tour guys were, the type of boards they were riding, and the most high performance type of equipment that you could get at that time was ultralight, like single layer glass, ultralight Clark Foam blanks, because of the flex characteristic. But they would blow through these things so fast, put their feet through them, buckle them, break them in like 3 pieces. But that's the feeling everyone was looking for, was that type of construction, and not so much that type of construction, but what that type of construction offered under your feet for the most, responsive kind of board. And so I saw that, and I saw like, man, there is a lot of waste here. There's a lot of boards getting just torn apart. They get like 1 or 2 surfs or ride it in one contest, and it's like, okay, that board's toast. I want this same thing. And so it got me thinking, how do you make a flex characteristic like that, that's ultralight, has that dampening poly feel, but is real kinetic in the lip? And so I had begun, when I had started on my own, opened this factory almost, how long's it been, babe? 25 years ago? 26 years ago? 25 years ago? And so this was before, just prior to Clark Foam shutting their doors. And here you have a 90s, early 2000s Andy Iron style looking shortboard. And I had begun doing stuff with epoxy. And at that time it was like, epoxy had been tried on surfboards in like the late 70s, and then had been pretty much abandoned. And for kind of its difficulty to work with, early epoxy was kind of crude, hard stuff to work with. And so just in the thought process, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to these different trade shows and polymer trade shows and study about different materials you can use to engineer flex characteristic, but have them not just be, you know, throw away only for the pros, disposable boards, but make something that would last even longer than a standard stock poly. And so I started looking at things like Kevlar. Here's a board probably, I don't know, at least 20 years old. Has Kevlar in it, has epoxy, has some high density foam on the perimeter, parabolic stringers, carbon on it, and you had something that was really light and really high performance. And this was early on days for me when I first started down this journey. This was a board for a guy in Australia, Jera, and it's called the Titanium series back in the day. Transworld Surf had me down, and we had a bunch of these boards, and we test rode them, and there's a write-up about it, and it was a really unique. You see that board's still going, and it's been through the ringer. That board was a macking Kira, like all over the place, all through Indo. Got ridden for 3 years, and is still going strong. It's kind of a memorabilia board I keep around, just to be around me with all the other boards that are special to me throughout the years. And on the heels of that, Nick Rosa, when he did the homegrown series, we kind of graduated to this construction actually before people were doing the stringerless epoxy carbon rail thing. And this was our unique construction with a unique custom woven carbon and a unique foam blank, and just the whole system here was unique to us. And Nick Rosa rode this into fame, a really neat part in surfing history, with Chris Papaleo documenting everything, the homegrown series, and I think we all remember that. And this board's still going too, but this is another one of those ultralight, you know, flex pattern oriented, real kinetic type of constructions. And this had its place. Well, and this is I called this the carbon footprint, kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing for you know, making your stamp on something, and carbon was involved. But that board, another one, still holding up after all these years, and Nick rode that board hard, and you know, breathed new life into his surfing. Just that flex characteristic, like, whoa, this is something, you know, gets me stoked about surfing. And so that's always the bottom line, is building things that get you stoked about surfing. So this is my latest thing. It's called the Carbon Footprint version 4, and this is the lightest, strongest, probably most kinetic construction that we've got going right now. And the concept is, you know, strength with the carbon on the deck, and strength, brake strength, wrapping around the rails, and then the bottom is a special kind of glass that gives it a dampening effect with a high density foam stringer. So you have a kind of a threefold brake strength with the lap structure and the high density foam. So it's not rigid like a wood stringer. Gives it a little bit of tension, almost like tuning a guitar or tuning a musical instrument. You get it to just the right tension of the strings, and then the harmony is beautiful. That's the concept behind having a HD foam stringer and this here, so you get that real whippy flex characteristic, but not so whippy that it warps so far that it pops. So you keep a little bit of tension, but not as much as the wood. And I've found that, you know, what you get is you enable the board to get loaded up and then recoil out of that tension that's put into it, and you're able to generate more speed, more whip in the lip, and more drive off the bottom, and really reach into where the power areas of the wave are, and maximize that with the board flexing from side to side as well as nose to tail. And then the The carbon we use, it's carbon that's custom woven stuff made in the USA over on the East Coast. So that's a really cool part of everything. And the bottom not having carbon is unique to this what we're doing here, because that gives it the dampening feel of a poly. Off the bottom through deads, if it's strong offshores, it just softens things up. The carbon on the bottom, I think that is, the place for the carbon is on the deck for strength, and on the lap for brake strength, and also for the quickest recoil. Carbon is a glass that recoils really quickly, but if you overdo it with the carbon, you just get a rigid board that only works in certain circumstances. So this construction gives it a versatile approach. Like I said, the flex pattern of both a poly and an epoxy, depending where you are on the wave. The dampening flex off the bottom between maneuvers, and then the kinetic flex of epoxy in the lip. And the lamination is a balanced lamination too. So you have equal glass deck and bottom. So the flex pattern is it's recoiling off the top and the bottom of the board in a balanced way that's more predictable than traditional laminations. And so this one is actually, it's the X15G. So it's a popular high performance shortboard model I'm doing. It's the X15 with a slightly flattened rocker, and so it's a little bit more grovelly. And so that's this puppy. And then so a neat thing about this construction too is that not only are you getting something lighter, you're getting something stronger than, to get an ultralight this light and whippy in poly, you're talking, it's a board that's you're gonna go through it quickly. This is like gonna last 5 times longer than that style of board. So you get the performance, but you get longevity. And it's unlimited. You can do it with any shape. So it's not like, okay, I'm doing this construction and these are made overseas or made at a separate operation. This isn't something where I was approached with a new technology by someone outside of our company that said, hey, I got this new technology, would you like to license it out, and we'll build the boards over here, and we'll have A, B, and C board model in these different dimensions. But instead, what we did is came up with a whole new concept built right here in our factory, and it's not contingent on, oh, check and see what the stock dims are, because lately there's been a big push for just go see what the stock dims are, or walk in a shop and put a board under your arm. I've never been a big fan of that or proponent of that, because everyone's different. So to build a board that's really suited exactly to you, it's a special thing to get a custom board built for you. And you know, there can be a push, because sometimes, you know, a business model takes precedent over actually what's going to benefit the surfer, and the custom thing is very labor intensive and a harder approach to do that, because you're actually having real relationship with people and finding out what's going to work the best for them, and then you build it to spec for that person. And that's just it's a more difficult process, but it's a much more rewarding process. So rather than just going in and like, okay, well, they offer it in this and that dimension, so and so rides it and they surf good, so I should get it. That whole type of thinking, it doesn't really benefit you in the end. It just lets you get something that's almost right for you, but never quite right. So you end up with a garage full of boards gathering dust at trying to find that one that's just right for you. So what's cool about this construction is it's wide open. You can build any dimensions, any board model, any, you know, exactly what's going to be right for you. Here's an example of that. Here is the Magnum Opus design, which is one of our most popular the last couple summers, combining like the feel of a fish, glide and speed of a fish, with the performance, like rail hold and snappiness of a performance board, combining those two worlds. This is a Magnum Opus custom for a guy named Eric and to his exact dimensions, what's perfect for him. And you know, super light, springy, built off of a Magic file that's a perfect custom board for him. And you can even do color on the bottom. You can go clear if you like clear, but you can do color too, which is cool because epoxies, if they last longer, stronger, last longer, the clear on the bottom, with any board, they're going to yellow over time. So say this board where, you know, it breaks that paradigm of, oh, I'll have this for one season. You know, 5 years from now, you can go clear and it'll get a little dingy, you know, and that's cool. Some people like beigey or yellowy boards that have been around for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you do want, you can spray it a color and then it stays sweet looking for years to come. So, you know, the versatility of the custom design process with this construction too is a really neat thing. Here's magnum opus, and then there's another aspect of this construction that we've incorporated. It's like an add-on part. Here's actually a board for my friend Nick, for Nick Rosa. Got a little dusty. And this is a duplicate of Nick's latest favorite board, the X2030. And we went to the islands this summer, and no cameras, no nothing, just went as friends, you know, did some fishing and then ended up surfing. We're just, you know, out there, just the two of us. And this X2030, we were both laughing because the heyday of Nick in the Spotlight and the Homegrown series, that was years ago. And now he's a dad, family, married, you know, just had a new baby too, and is building boats. But I mean, a natural like that, they hop on a board after not surfing for months, weeks, whatever, and they just pick up right where they left off. So we went out just as friends, and he hopped on the X2030, and we both started laughing. He's going, dude, after all you know that we've done and been through together, this is the best board you've ever made me. And I'm looking at him surfing, I'm going, dude, this is the best surfing I've ever seen you do. And like, the golden age is back years ago. And so it was really cool, you know, just to continue the design process, you know, with friends, and you come up with stuff, and it's exciting times. And it doesn't always have to be in front of the camera. It can be for the love of surfing and hanging with your mates, with your bros. And so this is a duplicate of that board that we most recently rode, and was like, okay, here we are all these years later, and just funness. And so this is a duplicate of that board in this construction that we have yet now to go ride, and I'm really excited about that. My daughter's going to do some of her critters art on this for Uncle Nick, but this one has a unique thing too in it. That's the Carbon V4. This one you could maybe even call it the Carbon version 5, and you'll notice on the bottom it's got this grid pattern, this white grid pattern. This is a lot of the stuff I'm not going to say where I get my materials, how I make them, break that down, because I don't want it ripped off, because it's a very special thing. But I will let you in on this. This grid pattern, this is an Inegra glass. It's like a vulcanized rubber fiber. So it's a very strong but very soft flex characteristic. And so by putting this underneath the glass on the bottom, it gives it an even softer flex characteristic. So it's almost like a poly plus more of just smooth and buttery across the wave face. And not only does that material give you a softer flex, but then also what we've done is it creates an irregular pattern that breaks the surface tension of the water. Very much like if you ever look at a golf ball and see how it's, you know, has all the little dimples in it. And the old golf balls in the old day, they actually had a more square pattern that broke the surface tension of the air. And how foils move through the air, is very similar to how foils, which a surfboard is basically a foil, moves through the water. So when you break the surface tension of the air or you break the surface tension of the water, you're opening up whole new realms of like friction-free surfing that let boards run like they're on air, not so much like they're stuck in jello or on water. They run free. So even when we sand this, it has this irregular, like kind of square pattern feel on the bottom that's very different than just a smooth, you know, hole contour on a board. So this, we're probably going to call it, you know, exciting times yet to be seen from this puppy right here, X2030 duplicate. And it's, you know, I'll keep you posted. But what I've found so far is, you know, this setup is absolutely phenomenal. And this board actually is around just over 4 pounds, incredibly light. And on that front, I wanted to talk about that lightness, because some people go, well, 4 pounds, that's too light. That also just has a certain, you know, type of waves that will work in, because boards that are too light, they won't work in good waves or this or that. And so I beg to differ on that front, because a light board that has like a rigid skin on it is a problem, because then it gets fluttery, you know, like a leaf blowing in the breeze. It's, you know, you get any bit of surface tension or too much push in the wave, it gets chattery and too light, like blows away from under your feet. But if you have a board that's light yet warps, is real springy and is absorbing all that energy, and not disseminating the energy, but actually drawing that energy in by how it's able to like couple with the surface tension and all the different things going on in the wave, you're able to actually take the energy from all that irregularness and put it into the flex pattern of the board, absorbing that and actually charging like a next level of energy into the board for how it's responsiveness and also its freeness. Like I said, almost like it's gliding on air or like floating rather than stuck onto a surface or in the wave face. It's actually completely free. And how I like to also approach that in my mind to like kind of make sense, where sometimes it gets technical and people are like, dude, I'm losing you. I can see there are a deer in the headlights. And so the way I try to bring it back in to understand what I'm talking about is with, as odd as it sounds, how buildings or high-rise buildings are built in Japan. Japan is, you know, island country. And it's on fault lines. You know, you have all these fault lines, these plates, tectonic plates that move and shift and cause earthquakes. So the way they build their buildings is very different. They don't build them like super duper strong so they don't move at all. And because what is found in architecture is if you build a building that way and the earth starts moving underneath it, what happens is it has structural failure. It has like a shear point that actually it crumbles sooner than if you make it to warp and roll and actually flex with the moving of the tectonic plates when there's an earthquake. Same with boards. So when you engineer a super light board and you make it to absorb the stresses and strains on it so it rolls with it, then you get something super dynamic where the lightness only works in your favor.